Okay, so what do you picture when you hear the words trailer park? Be honest. For a lot of us, a very specific and, let's face it, usually a pretty unflattering image pops into our heads, mostly thanks to TV and movies. But what if that whole picture is just wrong? Today, we're going to go inside one of these communities, and with the help of some incredible research, we're going to see what life is really. Yeah, this phrase. This is the label we're here to totally take apart. Because the research we're about to dive into shows a social world that is so complex, so diverse, that a single dismissive phrase like this one just becomes, well, completely meaningless. To really get what's happening now, we have to look back. Mobile homes didn't start out as some kind of symbol for poverty. Not at all. They were actually part of the post-war American dream. Think about it. It's 1945, the country is on the move, and these homes offered a real, affordable pathway to ownership for millions of people. So, how do you get past a stereotype and find the actual truth? Well, it's not about guessing. The answer is a pretty rigorous research method called ethnography. And this isn't about watching from a distance with a pair of binoculars. No, this is about total immersion, living inside a community to understand it from the ground up. When I say immersive, I mean it. For this study, the researchers spent over a year, 13 months, living in the park, talking with residents day in and out, building trust, and really hearing their stories. That is some serious dedication, and it's the kind of work that gets you insights you just can't find any other way. All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll get beyond that initial stereotype. Then we're going to meet the 5 totally distinct groups that were uncovered. The aspirers and strangers who are looking outward, the community-minded civics, and then the survivors and hedonists who are just trying to get by. And at the end, we'll see what this all tells us about how we think about poverty itself. So, the single biggest finding from this whole study is this. There is no one trailer park identity. It just doesn't exist. Instead, the researcher found what she calls 5 different poverty clusters, or social worlds, all living right next to each other. Each group has a completely different worldview and a totally unique playbook for navigating life. And across all these different groups, 2 main strategies kept popping up. First, you have acts of survival. All the smart, everyday tactics people use to just get by. But then you have acts of defiance. These are the ways, some big and some small, that residents push back against a system that they feel, for good reason, is stacked against them. Okay, let's start with the 2 groups whose eyes are on the prize, a life outside the park. They're both looking outward, but believe me, their views on how to get there could not be more different. So on one hand, you've got the aspirers. They are playing the long game. They're focused on the future, saving money, building skills, all with the goal of a middle-class life. To them, the park is just a stop along the way, a stepping stone. Then you've got the strangers. They are deeply, deeply critical of everything. They see the system as fundamentally broken and the park as a trap they have to break out of. Now, this is a gut punch of an example of an aspirator's act of defiance. Amanda, an Air Force vet, is using this incredibly dark, sarcastic humor to deal with a horrible trauma from her past. It's her way of taking back her own story, of reclaiming her dignity from a bureaucracy that failed her. It's a subtle, but wow, is it a powerful form of resistance. The strangers, well, they're coming from a completely different angle. They see huge structural problems everywhere, in their jobs, in schools, in the government. They don't blame themselves for their situation. They point the finger directly at the system. And their main resource? It's their own sharp, critical mind, which they use to question, well, pretty much everything. Just listen to Irene here. To her, refusing to use a self-checkout machine isn't just about being old-fashioned. No, it is a full-blown political statement. It's her way of protesting a company practice that she believes kills jobs without actually helping the customer. It's a small, everyday action driven by a really powerful, deeply held belief. Okay, now let's do a complete 180. Unlike those first 2 groups, the civics are not trying to get out. They are looking inward. Their whole focus is on making the park itself a better community for every single person who lives there. The civics are the activists, the organizers, the neighborhood watch captains of the park. Their whole mission is to build what sociologists call bridging social capital, which is a fancy way of saying they build connections. They connect residents to each other, connect the community to the park management, and even connect the park to the town council. They are the natural leaders. And don't think for a second this is just about showing up and yelling. Oh no, they are incredibly strategic. Just listen to John.
He doesn't just storm into a town council meeting angry. He does his homework. He reads the minutes, he follows the paper trail, he gathers facts, and he builds a logical, powerful argument. This isn't just passion, it's a playbook.
All right, let's get to our final two groups. Now, both the survivors and the hedonists are focused on the here and now, just getting through the day. But the way they go about it, well, they are polar opposites. So first, let's meet the survivors. Their main strategy is just helping each other out, cooperation. Here we have Robert, who's 82, and he's talking about how his neighbor, who's actually one of the civics, helps him with his yard work. Survivors build these really tight, supportive bonds with their neighbors to get through the tough stuff. And now, for a complete and total contrast, this is Anita, a hedonist. The park management moves the dumpsters, and her reaction isn't to figure it out or work together, it's just to defy the rule. Her focus is on her own immediate convenience, her own personal gratification, not on community rules or what's good for the group. And when you put their worldviews side by side like this, the difference is just staggering. For survivors, poverty is something you endure. In the community is a survival zone where you find help. But for hedonists, poverty is an unfair system you should try to take advantage of. They see the community as a hostile, discriminatory space, and really only trust a tiny circle of people who are just like them. So after meeting these 5 incredibly different worlds, what's the big picture here? It's that the single, simple story we're so often told about poverty is just flat out wrong. We have to start embracing a reality that's a lot more complex and, frankly, a lot more human. Look, here's what it all comes down to. Poverty isn't just one thing. Inside this one park, we found 5 different social worlds. We've seen people building careers. We've seen people building communities. We've seen people just building survival networks. You know, coping is this incredibly creative act. And that lazy trailer park stereotype, it just completely erases all of the resilience, the intelligence, and the amazing human agency we've just seen. And that really leaves us with one final thought. If a single mobile home park can hold 5 different coexisting worlds, each with its own logic, its own values, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What simplistic assumptions are we making about the people and the communities all around us every single day?